What's going on here?
Okay, this is basically a diorama of the second half of the Peninsula Campaign that McClellan put on back from May to July 1862. This is the second part of McClellan trying to capture Richmond. He got within hearing the church bells in Richmond, about 3 miles out. That's as far as he could get, because General Lee had now taken over the army since the other army commander, Sidney Johnson, was wounded in an artillery fragment. So this is Lee's first command. Up until that point, Lee's job was to build fortifications and trenches around Richmond to defend it. This is actually the start of trench warfare that would lead into the First World War. So McClellan finally organized his army to come up. The rebels have excellent position. They're well dug in, and McClellan just can't break the line. Even though he has over 2 times the men that the rebels have, Lee is a master engineer. He graduated from West Point with that degree, so he knew how to do fortifications. It saved Richmond. McClellan never could break Lee's line. He would eventually have to retire back to Washington, D.C., and so the campaign was a total bust. Now what I have here, I have the Union line up here with the skirmishers. The Unions are still coming up to form their battle positions. They already have their artillery. They've been bombarding each other for several hours, and they're just about ready to form the line to do their last charge. But again, McClellan never could break Lee's defensive line. Now everything out here is usually pretty much muskets or rifled muskets. Myself, I like the old shotguns. This is up and close. This is an actual, real French 1857. It's modified for black powder, so they call it Schneider modification for a breech loader, much like the Spencer and the Sharps rifle. So to cut down the barrel, Mr. Schneider in I think it was Philadelphia where he did all this. He just breech load modification. You pull this out, this opens up. Brass shell, 12 gauge, which we still use today. You put your primer in it, load it, snap it shut, you're ready to go. It's very effective. Also, the cavalry like this, because it had a shorter barrel, they could actually ride their horse and shoot this at the same time. And you had a choice of putting a solid shot into it or a bird shot. So it's a very highly useful weapon. The weapon over there, standing on a shoulder mount, is a double barrel 12 gauge shotgun. That became famous out west later on. They called that the Wyatt Earp stagecoach shotgun. Same kind of caliber, 12 gauge brass shell. It was very effective in close range.
Want to know what they did with these?
Now some of the artillery shots, I only have a few. We're still building our collection.
Your gun, your ammo pouch, everything else.
This one here is called a spherical round shot,
I got you.
and this had a fuse in it.
Yep, that's why
So when the sergeant called what kind of round he wanted to fire and how far away the enemy was, we had a fuse man on the crew. So he knew how far down to cut the fuse for the yardage. You stick it in here, it would self-ignite when it comes out from the burning black powder. So many yards, it would be an aerial burst, and inside is a bunch of ball bearings. And it just rains down. This is one of the favorite shots you use for anti-artillery units. They didn't like these very well. These next two were developed by the Navy. This is called a ball and shot chain shot. They made these up to 30 pounds. This here is only 6. This other one here is kind of a homemade canister round. It's just wood with a chicken wire on it, and these are solid steel balls. When this comes out of the end of the cannon, all this dissipates, it comes out and acts like a great big shotgun shell. This one here is called a parrot round. This has stabilization fins on it. They put a black powder pack in it, and depending on the range you want to throw this thing, depending on how many cartridges of black powder you put behind it. Again, this is fused again, so you have a pretty accurate shot and it explodes wherever you want to hit. But these are just some of the artillery shells that we have at our disposal. This here is an actual 1/10 scale of a 6-pounder that the light artillery used very a lot. Over here is what they call a limber. This is what the guys would ride up on top and hitch the horses up, and the other men in the crew would ride on the horses to pull this. In here is what they call the limber. That's where they kept all their shots, black powder, and fuses. It was only big enough to hold 20 rounds, so that would be depleted really quickly. That's why artillery required a long wagon train behind it to keep it well supplied.
So was he a kill?